Welcome back to the Geeky Nerdy Techie Q&A Podcast. This is where I take some questions that I've seen come up on my videos or on my feed or anywhere that I've seen them come up, and I answer them in a video format. I hope you find this video helpful, and thanks for everybody for your support with this new series. I do appreciate it. My name's Shane, and again, if you do have anything specific you would like me to answer, leave a comment or question, whatever, in the comment section of this video, and if it relates to what I do, then I'll happily answer it on a future video, so that would be awesome. All right, let's get into this. So the first question was in relation to the Yongnuo 17mm f1.7 prime that I reviewed recently on the GH7 and also the G9 Mark II, and this is a micro four thirds lens. And the question is from Bruce. He says, other than the price and weight, how does it compare to the Sigma 16mm f1.4 lens? Is it good enough to replace the Sigma in the bag? For me personally, and this is just me, I would take this over the Sigma. Now, I know the Sigma 16mm f1.4 has a cult-like following. I recently purchased one about a year ago. I ended up selling it pretty quickly because, one, the Sigma was really heavy, and two, it had a lot of chromatic aberration when shooting wide open at f1.4. Now, this lens isn't perfect either, but I don't think it's any worse than the Sigma when it comes to chromatic aberration. I should also preface this by saying I've seen a lot of mixed reviews on the Sigma 16mm f1.4. Some people say it's optically perfect, and other people say it's one of the most lackluster lenses they've seen when it comes to chroma. And I would agree. I've seen samples where it looks excellent, and my particular version wasn't very good. So I don't really see there to be much of a benefit with the Sigma over the Yongnuo. If price is a consideration, this is far better value. And again, if you've got a Sigma 16mm f1.4 that's optically great, then it's a great lens. And in that case, the Sigma would probably get the win. But if you were like me and you've got one that exhibits a lot of chromatic aberration, if I could speak, then I would just say go for the Yongnuo. It makes far more sense. This lens is roughly the same size as the 25mm f1.7. So if you're familiar with this little plastic fantastic lens from Lumix, then you're going to like this. To me, this is what micro four thirds is all about. I don't want to carry a lens with me that's larger than full frame for micro four thirds unless I absolutely have to. If I'm traveling or anything like that where I just want a light, compact autofocus lens that gives me good results, I'm taking this 17mm f1.7. This isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. You still will get some chromatic aberration shooting wide open with this. And it also has a little bit of lens distortion as well, but I didn't really notice much of an issue with this outside. It was mostly inside here where I've got a lot of straight lines. I could see it was slightly warped towards the edges. Nice and easy to correct if you're shooting video, but it is what it is. I really feel like, for me personally, this is what micro four thirds is all about. Small, light, and affordable lenses. The Sigma, man, if that had been the lens that worked as well as what I hoped, I still would have kept it. It is a great lens, but there were a few things about it that I didn't love. And this also has a few of those same problems. So anytime you're talking about non-Lumix or Olympus lenses, there's sometimes compromises with how those lenses plug into the software on the cameras. So both the Yongnuo and also the Sigma don't work with the linear focusing mode if you'd like to shoot manual focus. So the Sigma in particular had one of the worst focus throws I've ever used when it came to manual focus. It was almost unusable. If you turn it a little bit faster than you want to, it just goes crazy and will pull focus way too fast. So for me, it wasn't great. Thanks to the new phase hybrid autofocus systems in the new cameras, either will work great with autofocus. So if you just plan on using autofocus, they're both really good. I just love the compact size of this. It's a lens I plan on using more. I've actually used this way more since my original review. I shot a whole bunch of B-roll at a shop recently. We were doing an in-store guitar demonstration for my other channel, and this was paired with the GH7 and gave me just like killer results when it came to B-roll. And yeah, it's a nice fast lens. It's nice and light. And again, it's what micro four thirds is all about. So while technically this might not be a better lens than the Sigma, I like it more. And I've owned both now. So yeah, I paid for the Sigma. This was sent out for review. And yeah, I'm really impressed with how this performs. The thing I really like about it, especially with autofocus, it pulls focus a lot smoother. So some people find the Panasonic DFD, the Panasonic phase hybrid autofocus a little too quick sometimes. Like it just instantly snaps to focus, whereas Sony, for example, will pull focus a little bit more cinematic looking. That can also be sped up, but you know, if you like something that's a little smoother, then this is a really great choice. Actually, think it's got one of the best autofocus focus pulls I've used on any system with any lens. So it's got that going for it as well. I think the benefit here is the size and weight. It's probably half the weight of the Sigma. And again, it's roughly the same size and physical form factor as the 25mm f1.7, except we've got an autofocus manual focus switch on the side, which I really dig. So I would choose this, but yeah, if you've got a Sigma copy that's actually optically fine, it's a great choice. This next question is in relation to the S1 Mark II versus the S5 Mark IIX in terms of straight up image quality. And the question is from Boy Ant Trifonov. Hopefully I said that right. I probably didn't. Sorry, dude. He says, Shane, how's the S1 Mark II sensor compare in image quality to the S5 Mark IIX? And then he says, I haven't really seen too many comparisons with it. So I wanted to talk about this. So after using the S1 Mark II for a while and then going back to my S5 Mark II or X, I didn't really feel like I was missing out on much. Now, there's technical differences, which means that if you turn dynamic range boost on the new camera, the S1 Mark II, you get more dynamic range than you would with it off, which is comparable then to the S5 Mark II and X. But in a real world scenario, I didn't notice any difference. I did do a couple of A/B comparisons between the cameras in my review video and just general shooting while I was away. And the difference wasn't huge. The biggest difference is the color science. The color science has been refined on the new camera a little bit. I think straight out of camera, it looks a little bit better. And it also looks a little bit softer. But the softness is something that you can adjust on your favorite profile anyway and bring that all the way down like I do, and you get a really nice look. And this is my custom picture profile here in the studio, and this would be something that I would use on the new cameras too. So at the end of the day, the results are going to look basically the same. Now, the new dynamic range on the S1 Mark II comes at the expense of way worse rolling shutter. So if rolling shutter is a problem for you, you need to make that decision as well. But other than that, if you're shooting in the standard frame rates, for example, I don't know if the new camera will really serve that much of a huge upgrade for you. The upgrade comes from the uncropped 4K 50 and 60 modes. But the trade-off there is that it overheats. I've never had an issue with the 4K 50 and 60 modes on the S5 Mark IIX or the S9. For what I do, it's fine. But if you can't live with an APS-C crop, then the new camera will give you better results in those scenarios. But it's all up to your use case. And at the end of the day, for me, spending 5,500 Australian dollars on a new camera to shoot in the same frame rates and in the same situations I do in and outside of YouTube here, it's not really worth it for me personally. And the image quality out of the S5 Mark II and X is fantastic. It's still one of my favorite cameras. I actually ended up selling my Sony FX3 to use this camera, and it's great. I wouldn't really see any reason to upgrade unless you need those higher frame rate modes that are uncropped. Now, the biggest difference in image quality, at least in my opinion, while the 4K 50 and 60 looks great, 4K at 120 frames per second looks really nice out of the new cameras. It might not look quite as nice as 4K 50 and 60p, but it still looks really good. And I think it's a big upgrade over like 1080p at 120 frames per second. But it all comes down to your use case. If you're, say, not shooting at 4K at 120 frames per second much, or you're not doing 4K 50 or 60 as your A-roll, then I don't think it's worth it. At least it isn't for me. The law of diminishing returns is absolutely true when it comes to comparing these two cameras. You're spending a lot more money and getting fractionally better performance out of it in certain modes, but not in every mode. If every mode looked instantly and infinitely better, I would no doubt jump ship. But as it stands right now, the S5 Mark IIX is still my favorite camera, and I don't plan on moving away from it when it comes to anything I do on YouTube or anything I do out in the field when I need full frame, because it's just rock solid and robust. It can withstand summer here, which is something that the new cameras can't do. And I just prefer reliability. It's the thing that I look for the most anytime I'm purchasing something, unless I need something for a particular scenario. But when it comes to the important stuff, or if I'm shooting outside in the summer here or overseas somewhere, I don't want any issues with overheating. So for me personally, the S5 Mark IIX is killer. You will notice a difference in the color science of the new cameras. Definitely gives you a different look. The Cine-like A2 profile is beautiful. The ergonomics of the new cameras are great too, but these are things that come at a price that might not be justified depending on your shooting scenario. Now, if you're someone who's shooting weddings and you need to shoot your A-roll at 4K 50 or 60p and you don't want to live with the crops, then the new camera makes a whole lot of sense, and the image quality there will outperform that of the S5 Mark II and X with the APS-C crop mode. But for the kind of stuff I do, man, the Crop mode isn't a huge deal. I use it all the time, and the performance out of the camera is still really solid. So yeah, I would say there is an improvement with the new camera in certain modes, in those higher frame rate modes. But at the end of the day, if you're shooting in Vlog and you post color grade it, it's going to look basically the same. I'm not sure you'll see a huge difference at the end of the day. Now, the nerds or people who are huge fans of specs will argue differently, but after using both cameras, I would be the first guy to upgrade if I thought, man, I'm going to get so much more out of this camera and I trust it. I don't really feel either way. I don't really feel like I'm going to get that much more out of it for my use case scenario than the S5IIX right now. And I don't trust it as much as I do the older cameras. And for me, that's a huge thing. So it's not just image quality. You kind of got to think about other things as well. And if you're living somewhere hot, it's going to be planted on a tripod outside. That's where you might run into problems with the new sensor, the new processor, and all the, stuff that comes along with that. So yeah, for me personally, I'm sticking with the S5IIX and X, at least for now. I still love this camera, and I've got 4 S5IIIs, so my multi-camera rig is sorted. This last question's in relation to the G9II, and this is from Chris Arochi2722. He says, I think you can answer this question since you've had or still have all of them. Based on your experience, does the G9II handle overheating as well as the GH5 or GH5S, which also don't have a cooling fan? I'm asking because I often find myself needing to record for long sessions with my GH5 in 4K, 25, 422, 10-bit, both indoors and outdoors. All right, so there's a couple of things here. The question's quite long. I'll put it on screen and I'll just start to answer this while I leave it here somewhere. So in the studio, it's fine. I've never had the camera even show a warning message shooting 4K, 25p, 422, 10-bit. It just runs and runs. Even plugged into an external monitor, it's not a problem. Now, if I'm running the camera over USB-C power delivery and using a HDMI output, shooting maybe 4K at 50 frames or 60 frames per second, that's where eventually it will overheat. But you can let it run for a long time in the studio shooting 4K, 25 frames per second, 422, 10-bit. I do it all the time, and I've never seen a warning message come up once, so that's great. Now, in regards to overheating outside, that's a thing. So if a camera's in direct sunlight, there's more of a chance it's going to overheat than it being in the shade on a hot day. And this is the mistake I made when I first purchased the G9II. I took it to Perth and it was 40 degrees Celsius, but it was overcast. It didn't overheat. It didn't show me a warning message. It just worked. And given I wasn't doing long duration takes outside, it still never overheated. So it's a pretty robust camera, but you get it in direct sunlight on a day that's maybe 10 degrees cooler, which is still hot at like 30 degrees Celsius, then you can have it overheat. It's overheated once in my experience with it outside in direct sunlight like that. So yeah, it's definitely not as robust as the GH5 and GH5S. The cameras that are as good are the GH6 and GH7, which have that active cooling fan. I think because of the new sensor technology, much like the full frame cameras, while you're getting all the fancy new stuff, it's also giving you more problems when it comes to overheating and thermals. So you've got to kind of weigh up what works best for you. Now, if you were using the G9II maybe intermittently outside or shooting in 10-minute clips outside or 20-minute clips even, depending on your scenario, you should be fine. But yeah, people have definitely got the G9II to overheat. And again, it's happened to me once on a day I wasn't expecting it to happen because it was hot, but it was getting blasted with direct sunlight, and that's the nemesis of electronics. Your phone can overheat in that scenario too. In my time using the GH5 and GH5S, I never saw an overheating warning message or anything like that, but I was shooting outside in direct sunlight a whole lot less than I am these days. So I don't have an apples to apples comparison, but my instinct is that the GH5 and S are both bulletproof. I don't see any comments anywhere where people say, oh yeah, I got it to overheat, unless you're doing something crazy. You're doing the potato jet incubator test, right? Even the Lumix S5, the full frame camera, doesn't overheat. That's a killer camera. So yeah, the older ones are definitely more reliable, but they're also more limited in some of their features. So with the advancement of the tech in these cameras and the processors and the autofocus and the higher resolutions and higher megapixel sensors, all that kind of stuff, it creates more heat. And it's a shame the G9II doesn't have a fan. It is what it is. But, at the end of the day, I wonder whether or not it would make a huge difference or not. So, and the reason I say that is because it's been proved now that some of the new full frame cameras are overheating even with active cooling fans built into them. So yeah, just you've got to use the G9II in a way that isn't in direct sunlight for long duration takes. And again, in the studio, it's never been an issue for me unless I'm running USB-C power, and then I'm also running a HDMI out, and I'm shooting 4K 50 or 60p, or if I'm shooting like 5.7K with a widescreen aspect ratio on these cameras. So yeah, it's one of those sort of situations where you got to pick the right tool for the job. It doesn't sound like the G9 Mark II is going to be what you want for long duration takes outside in the sun. I wouldn't risk it personally. The cameras I would trust a lot more, the S5 Mark II and X, the GH6 and GH7, those will just run and run and run. Having the active cooling in those cameras has proved to work in basically any situation. I don't think I've seen any comments in any of my videos where someone said, oh yeah, I got the GH6 or 7 to overheat. Even with the same CF Express card, I was able to get the full frame cameras to overheat with, which is on the approved list. The GH7 just works. So yeah, I would say go for the GH7. The physical size of it is bigger than the GH5 and GH5S, but I think it's a much better camera overall. And the active cooling in that case really does work a treat. The build quality is great. I don't think you'll have a problem. The size is worth it if it helps the reliability. If something's just big and then it's not reliable, it gets the big thumbs down for me. The size comes with some improvements with the GH6 and 7 over the G9 Mark II when it comes to thermals. So that would be my 2 cents about this. You know, you mentioned you never shoot RAW. I never shoot RAW either. But again, if you want the most reliable camera, still micro four thirds is the way to go. And the GH6 and 7 is a great choice. You know, if you can live with the autofocus, the GH6 on the used market now, you can buy them for next to nothing compared to where they were. I've seen them as low as $1,000 Australian dollars. So yeah, I think I sold mine for like $1,200. I probably should have kept it. I'm an idiot, but yeah, I'm kind of moving all my cameras to more, you know, ease of use scenarios now. Everything that I've got has great autofocus. Now I know I'm using a manual focus lens right now. Generally speaking, if I'm out in the field, I just want the autofocus to work where I don't have to think about it. Nothing worse than spending a day outside filming and then realize it's all out of focus. There's ways around that, but I just don't want to work around that kind of stuff anymore. Same with overheating. I don't want to work around it anymore either. So yeah, it is what it is. That's my 2 cents. I would say give the G9 Mark II a miss, unless it's in the shade where you're going to be just using it as a standalone camera. Another way you can also improve the thermals is by using a dummy battery. I have a video coming up about that as well, but I was able to shoot indefinitely on my S9 recently using that, and I'll talk more about that on a dedicated video because I want to talk about my portable S9 setup over here. But again, the S9 and G9 Mark II are the 2 cameras I would recommend for long form recording outside on a hot day. So I hope that's helpful. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. My name's Shane. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you can, leave a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. I'm going to try and do these every 10 days or so. It's about 10 days since the last one. So thank you so much. I actually got a little sick in between the last one and this one, but I'm back. I got my voice mostly back now, and yeah, it's great to be back. So thank you for hanging out. And if you want to see the full playlist of these videos in the podcast, I'll link it up in the cards over here. Thanks for watching. Catch you soon. See ya.